The alarm screamed through the corridors of the Teguk dawn. Yuna grabbed the edge of her desk as the ship lurched sideways. Books and data tablets scattered across the floor of her small research cabin. She heard boots running in the hallway outside. "All hands to stations. This is not a drill." Captain Minho's voice boomed through the intercom. Yuna rushed to the bridge, her heart pounding. Through the massive observation window, she saw something that made her breath catch. A structure floated in the darkness of space, so enormous that their entire ship could fit inside it 100 times over. It looked like a temple from ancient Earth, but made of crystal and light. Spires reached out in all directions, glowing with soft blue energy. "What is that?" Hana whispered beside her. The chief engineer's face was pale. "Scanning now," said one of the officers. "Captain, it's pulling us in. Some kind of tractor beam. I can't break free." Minho stood firm, his hands gripped behind his back. "Stop fighting it. Save our power." "Weapons status?" "Weapons won't help us, sir," Hana said quietly. "That thing could swallow us whole." Yuna moved closer to the window. She had studied hundreds of alien cultures during her training, but nothing prepared her for this. The structure was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. As they drew nearer, she could see symbols carved into the crystal surface. They glowed and shifted like living things. The Teguk dawn settled into a docking bay that opened like a flower. The bay was made of the same glowing crystal. When the airlock sensors blinked green, Minho turned to his crew. "Yuna, Hana, you're with me. Everyone else, stay ready. If we're not back in 2 hours, get out of here however you can." "Captain," Yuna said, "I should go alone. I'm the linguist. This is what I trained for." "No one goes alone," Minho said firmly. "We're a crew. We face this together." The airlock opened. The air that rushed in was cool and smelled like rain and electricity. 3 figures waited for them in the docking bay. They were tall, perhaps 3 meters high, with bodies that seemed made of crystal and light. Their faces were smooth with no visible mouths, but their eyes glowed like distant stars. The central figure stepped forward. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I am Veltharan, High Priest of the Velari. You have entered sacred space. Explain yourselves." Yuna felt Minho tense beside her, but she stepped forward. "We are explorers from Earth. We meant no disrespect. Our ship was pulled here. All ships are pulled here," Veltharan said. "This is the Archive of Echoes. We stand at the crossroads of 17 star systems. Every species that wishes to pass through this sector must first be recorded. We preserve the memory of civilizations so that nothing is truly lost to the void." The priest turned and began walking. The humans had no choice but to follow. They passed through corridors that seemed to be carved from solid light. Hana kept glancing at the walls, her engineer's mind clearly trying to understand the technology. They entered a chamber so vast that Yuna couldn't see the far wall. Holographic displays floated everywhere, showing alien worlds, strange creatures, ships and cities that no longer existed. Each one was labeled in scripts she couldn't read. "The Grand Archive," Veltharan announced. 10 million years of history. 60,000 species recorded. Some thrived. Some fell. Some simply vanished. But here, they are remembered. Another Velari approached, this one smaller and older looking. Its crystalline body had cracks that glowed with golden light. "Another young species," it said, its voice dry with contempt. "Look at them. Veltharan. Barely beyond their own star system. What could they possibly offer?" "The resonance is not measured in distance traveled, Natharon," Veltharan replied. "It is measured in depth of soul." Yuna's hands clenched. She had heard that tone before. The dismissal. The casual cruelty of those who thought themselves superior. It reminded her of her professors back on Earth. The ones who had laughed at her theories. "What is the resonance?" Minho asked. Veltharan turned to face them fully. "It is proof that a species is worth preserving. Art, philosophy, unique thought. Every civilization must demonstrate something that makes it valuable to the galaxy, something that would be a true loss if it disappeared. And if we can't? Hana asked. Then you are turned away. Your coordinates are erased from our records. You will find every Velari station closed to you. Much of the galaxy will remain forever, beyond your reach. Silence filled the enormous chamber. Yuna felt the weight of it pressing down on her shoulders. The future of humanity's expansion into space, decided here and now by alien priests who thought humans were beneath them. You have 3 days, Veltharon said. Your linguist will present humanity's case before the council. If you fail, you leave immediately and never return. 3 days? Yuna's voice cracked. To represent an entire species, the Gentari needed only 1 hour. The Kolveth needed merely minutes. 3 days is generous for such a young race. Natharon's tone made it clear what he thought of their chances. Veltharon raised one crystalline hand. You will be given quarters and access to our lower archives for research. Do not attempt to enter restricted areas. Our patience has limits. The priest turned and glided away, leaving the humans standing in the vast chamber, surrounded by the ghosts of dead civilizations. Hana grabbed Yuna's arm. Can you do this? 3 days? Yuna looked up at the holographic displays floating above them. Countless species, all deemed worthy of remembrance. What made humanity special? What could she possibly say that would matter to beings who had seen 10 million years of history? I don't know, she whispered. But I have to try. Minho put a hand on her shoulder. You're the smartest person I know, Yuna. If anyone can find an answer, it's you. But as Yuna watched the alien records drift past like stars, she felt a familiar fear rising in her chest. The same fear she'd felt in the university lecture halls when everyone told her she was wrong. The same fear that had driven her from Earth. What if they were right? What if humanity really had nothing special to offer? She pushed the thought away. 3 days. She had 3 days to save humanity's future among the stars. 3 days to prove that Earth's children deserved to be remembered. The archive waited, vast and silent, holding secrets she couldn't yet imagine. Yuna spent the first day searching through the lower archives. Her eyes burned from staring at holographic displays for hours. Every achievement she found about humanity had been done better by someone else. Humans made art. The Korvathi created sculptures that existed in 7 dimensions. Humans wrote music. The Velthine composed symphonies that could be felt in the soul without ears. Mathematics, science, philosophy, species millions of years old, had mastered everything humanity had barely begun to understand. She sat on the floor of the archive chamber, surrounded by floating displays. Her tablet lay useless beside her, filled with notes that led nowhere. Having trouble? Yuna looked up. A young Velari stood nearby, his crystalline form less weathered than the others. His glow was brighter, tinged with hints of green. I'm Inho, he said. I study the newer species. The ones less than 1,000,000 years old. So, the babies of the galaxy, Yuna said bitterly. Inho tilted his head in what might have been a smile. Youth is not a weakness. Sometimes the young see what the old have forgotten. That's kind of you to say, but I can't find anything unique about my people. Everything we've done, someone else did first. And better. Inho settled down beside her, his body humming softly. Can I tell you a secret? Most species feel this way. The Velari have been doing this for so long that we've forgotten what it's like to be new, to discover things for the first time. There's value in that wonder, even if we don't always recognize it. Will that save us? Wonder? Probably not, Inho admitted. Veltharon and the Council are traditional. They want measurable achievements. Unique cultural markers. Something that exists nowhere else in the galaxy. Yuna dropped her head into her hands. Then we're lost. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she wandered the corridors of the temple ship, her mind racing. The Velari had given her limited access. But the ship was enormous. She found herself in sections where the lights grew dimmer and the crystal walls showed cracks. Taman found her around midnight by ship's time. The young crew member had followed her, worried. You shouldn't be walking alone, he said. Captain's orders. Can't sleep anyway, Yuna muttered. She stopped at a junction where the corridor split in 3 directions. One path was marked with symbols that glowed red. What do you think is down there? Probably the restricted areas they warned us about, Taman said. He stepped closer to the symbols. These markings are different. Older, maybe? Yuna pulled out her scanner. The device struggled to interpret the symbols. They seemed to shift and change, never quite staying in one form. We should go back, Taman said, but his voice lacked conviction. One quick look, Yuna said. If there's something here the Velari don't want people to see, maybe it's important. They moved down the restricted corridor. The temperature dropped. Their breath came out in small clouds. The walls here were darker, the crystal clouded with age. After several minutes of walking, they found a door sealed with the same shifting symbols. Yuna touched the door. It felt cold, but something about it called to her. Without thinking, she pressed her palm flat against the crystal. The door slid open. Yuna, Taman hissed. What did you do? I don't know. Come on, quickly. The chamber beyond was small and circular. In the center stood a pedestal, holding fragments of what looked like broken tablets. They were made of the same crystal as the ship, but clouded and cracked with age. Symbols covered every surface, flowing and shifting like water. Yuna approached slowly, hardly breathing. She had never seen writing like this. It reminded her of ancient Earth languages, Sumerian, Sanskrit, Proto, Indo-European, but older somehow, more fundamental. The symbols seemed to exist at the edge of meaning, almost readable but just beyond understanding. Don't touch anything, Taman whispered, but Yuna was already reaching out. The moment her fingers brushed the first tablet, images flooded her mind. Cities of light, beings of pure energy. A language that felt less like words and more like the fundamental structure of thought itself. She gasped and pulled back. What is this place? Taman asked, looking around nervously. I don't know, but these tablets, you should not be here. They spun around. Natharon stood in the doorway, his ancient crystalline form blocking their exit. His glow had turned angry red. I'm sorry, Yuna said quickly. The door opened. We didn't mean to. Silence. The old Velari's voice cracked like breaking ice. This is the Void Archive. These are records of the Firstborn, the civilization that came before all others. They are sealed for a reason. No outsider has touched these tablets in 10,000 cycles. He moved forward, reaching for them. But then he stopped. His glow shifted from red to blue to white. Cycling through colors Yuna had never seen a Velari display. You, he said slowly. You touched the tablets? I'm sorry, What did you see? Yuna hesitated. Cities. Beings made of light. And a language. I couldn't read it, but it felt familiar somehow. Natharon was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost afraid. We have studied these tablets for millennia. No Velari has ever seen anything when touching them. They are dead records, fragments of a lost age. We cannot even read the script properly. It shifts and changes, defying all translation. He looked at the tablets, then back at Yuna. But you saw something, felt something. I did, Yuna said quietly. Impossible. But Natharon didn't sound angry anymore. He sounded confused. The Firstborn vanished billions of years ago. Their language was lost. We have fragments, nothing more. Even the greatest minds of the Velari can only guess at meanings. Yuna looked at the tablets again. The symbols still shifted, but now that she had touched them, she could almost see patterns, almost understand the rhythm of their movement. These symbols, she said slowly, they remind me of root languages from my world, the oldest forms of human writing. The patterns underneath all are different ways of speaking. That makes no sense, Natharon said. Your world is young. The Firstborn died before your son was born. I know, but the feeling is there. Natharon moved closer to her, his glow pulsing with something that might have been excitement or fear. Some doors were sealed because what lies beyond breaks those who remember. We locked this archive away because the Firstborn's legacy is too heavy to bear. They created us, all of us, and then vanished. We have spent eons trying to understand why. Created you? Taman asked. Seeded consciousness across the galaxy. Left fragments of themselves in the earliest forms of life. But the knowledge of how was lost when they disappeared. Natharon gestured to the tablets. This is all that remains. Broken pieces of a dead language. Or so we thought. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Say nothing of this to anyone. Not yet. I must think. After he left, Yuna and Tyamin stood alone in the forbidden archive. Yuna looked down at her hands, still tingling from touching the tablets. What just happened? Taman whispered. I don't know, Yuna said. But deep in her mind, something had awakened. A whisper of understanding that she couldn't quite grasp, like a word on the tip of her tongue, just beyond reach. She would come back to this place. She had to. Whatever the Firstborn had left behind, somehow, impossibly, it called to her in a voice that felt like coming home. Yuna couldn't stay away from the forbidden archive. She returned the next night, and the night after that. Each time, the door opened at her touch, as if it recognized her. Taman stood guard in the corridor while she worked. The tablets called to her. She spent hours staring at the symbols, tracing them with her fingers, feeling the strange vibrations they made in her mind. Slowly, painfully, patterns began to emerge. You look terrible, Hana said when Yuna returned to their quarters on the second morning. Dark circles ringed her friend's eyes, and her hands trembled. I'm fine, Yuna lied. You're not sleeping. You're barely eating. The presentation is tomorrow. And you still haven't told Minho what you're going to say. I'm working on something. I just need more time. Hana grabbed her shoulders. Time's up, Yuna. Whatever you're doing, it has to be enough. You're scaring me. But Yuna couldn't stop. The symbols from the tablets followed her even when she closed her eyes. They danced in her vision, arranging themselves into patterns that almost made sense. She started writing them down, comparing them to every language database she had. The similarities were undeniable. The way the symbols connected, the rhythm of their structure, it matched the deepest patterns in human languages. Not the modern ones, but the ancient roots, the fundamental ways humans organized thought and sound. On the third day, Inho found her in the forbidden archive. She didn't even look up when he entered. Natharon told me you were here, he said quietly. He's been watching you. We all have. Am I breaking rules? Yuna asked, still focused on the tablets. Technically, yes. But Natharon hasn't reported you. That alone is strange. He's never allowed anyone near these tablets. Inho moved closer. What are you finding? A language, Yuna whispered. The oldest language. The one that came before everything else. She turned to face him, her eyes bright with exhaustion and excitement. Your people call them the Firstborn. They didn't just seed life across the galaxy. They seeded language itself. The basic patterns of how conscious minds organize meaning. And somehow, impossibly, humans kept those patterns alive. Inho's glow shifted through confused colors. That's not possible. The Firstborn vanished billions of years ago. Earth is young. How could you preserve what you never knew existed? I don't know, Yuna admitted. But look at this. She pulled up her research on a holographic display. Lines of symbols from the tablets appeared next to samples of ancient human writing. She traced the patterns with shaking fingers. See how the symbols connect? The way meaning flows from one to another? It's the same deep structure. Not the same language, but the same foundation. Like we're all singing different songs from the same sheet of music. The Velari have studied these tablets for 10,000 cycles, Inho said slowly. Our greatest scholars couldn't crack the code. How are you doing this? Because I'm human. The words came out stronger than Yuna felt. Because my brain is wired differently than yours. When I look at these symbols, something in my mind recognizes them, not consciously, but deep down, like muscle memory for my thoughts. She touched one of the tablets again. The familiar flood of images came: cities, beings, light. But this time, she pushed deeper. She let the symbols flow through her mind without trying to control them, and then she understood. The firstborn hadn't just created a language, they had encoded themselves into it. Their thoughts, their memories, their entire way of seeing the universe, all preserved in the structure of meaning itself. Any species that learned to think, to use symbols to represent ideas, carried a tiny fragment of the firstborn within them. But most species had changed too much, evolved too far from the original patterns. The Velari, for all their ancient wisdom, had spent millions of years developing their own unique ways of thinking. The connection to the firstborn had faded to nothing. Humans were different, young, unchanged. Earth had evolved in isolation, and by pure chance, the way human brains processed language had stayed close to the original template. Close enough that when Yuna looked at firstborn symbols, something deep in her neural pathways whispered, "I know this." "Can you read it?" Inho asked, his voice barely audible. "Some of it. Not all. But enough." Yuna turned back to the tablets. "There's a prophecy here. A message the firstborn left behind. What does it say?" Yuna's hands moved across the tablets, pulling together fragments from different pieces. The symbols glowed under her touch, responding to her in ways they never had for the Velari. "The children will fragment across the void," she read slowly, translating as she went. "The torch will dim. But one line, one unexpected branch, will carry the ember through the darkness." She paused, struggling with a complex cluster of symbols. When the young speak with old voices, the cycle turns. Silence filled the archive. Inho's glow had gone almost white with shock. "Do you understand what this means?" he whispered. "I think," Yuna started. But her vision suddenly blurred. The room spun. She grabbed the pedestal to steady herself. "Yuna!" Inho caught her as she stumbled. Pain shot through her head. The symbols from the tablets were burning in her mind, brighter and more insistent. They wanted to be read, wanted to be understood. The weight of billions of years of memory pressed down on her consciousness. "Too much," she gasped. "There's too much here." Inho helped her sit. "This is why the archive was sealed. The firstborn's language isn't just words. It carries their thoughts, their memories. Using it connects you to them across time, but the human mind wasn't meant to hold that much. Then how am I supposed to present this to the council?" Yuna asked through gritted teeth. "How can I show them what I've found without destroying my mind in the process?" "Maybe you don't have to do it alone." They both turned. Natharon stood in the doorway. The ancient Velari had been so quiet they hadn't heard him approach. "The firstborn worked in unity," Natharon said. "One mind could not hold all they were. Perhaps that is the lesson. Perhaps that is what makes your species valuable." "I don't understand," Yuna said. "You humans are young, but you work together. You share knowledge, build on each other's discoveries. The Velari have grown isolated in our wisdom. Each of us guards our own understanding, but you bring your crew, your friends, your whole species into every challenge." Natharon moved closer to the tablets. For the first time, Yuna saw something like regret in his ancient glow. "I mocked you when you arrived," he said quietly. "I thought youth meant weakness. But perhaps we old ones have forgotten something important. Perhaps the strength is not in what you know, but in what you can become." He looked at Yuna with eyes that held millennia of memory. "Tomorrow, you face the council. They will expect you to prove humanity's worth through great achievements. But maybe the truth is simpler. Maybe you are worth preserving because you still carry something we lost long ago." "The connection to the firstborn," Yuna whispered. "The capacity for wonder," Natharon corrected. "The ability to see old things with new eyes. To find meaning where we see only dead stone." He gestured to the tablets. "These have been here for eons. Thousands of species have passed through this temple. Not one of them made the crystals glow. Not one of them heard the firstborn's voice. Until you. Yuna felt tears on her cheeks. The pain in her head was fading, replaced by a strange clarity. "Will the council listen?" she asked. "I don't know," Natharon admitted. Veltheron is traditional. The others are set in their ways. But truth has a power of its own. Yuna stood, steadier now. Tomorrow, she would face the council. Tomorrow, she would have to prove humanity's worth. But for the first time since arriving at the temple, she felt a spark of hope. The firstborn had left a message across billions of years, and somehow, against all odds, humanity could hear it. That had to mean something. The chamber of testimony was the largest space Yuna had ever seen. It rose up in tiers, filled with hundreds of Velari, whose crystalline bodies glowed like stars. At the center, on a raised platform, stood Veltheron and the other council members. The high priest held a staff of pure white crystal that pulsed with ancient power. Yuna stood alone on the floor of the chamber. Behind her, in a viewing gallery, sat Minho, Hana, and the rest of her crew. She could feel their worry like heat against her back. "This human will now present her species' case for inclusion in our records," Veltheron announced. His voice echoed through the vast space. "Speak, and let us judge if humanity deserves remembrance." Yuna's mouth was dry. She had barely slept, and her head still ached from working with the firstborn tablets. But she stepped forward, carrying a case with the tablet fragments Natharon had allowed her to bring. "Honored Council," she began, her voice small in the enormous chamber. "I did not come here to list humanity's achievements. We are young. We have built cities and ships, created art and music, but nothing that hasn't been done before by older, wiser species." Murmurs rippled through the assembled Velari. In the gallery, she saw Minho lean forward, confused. This wasn't what they had discussed. "Then why waste our time?" one of the council members demanded. "If you have nothing unique to offer, why should we remember you?" Yuna opened her case and carefully lifted out one of the tablet fragments. The ancient crystal caught the light, symbols flowing across its surface. The chamber went silent. "Because," Yuna said clearly, "humanity can read what you cannot." Veltheron's glow flared bright. "Those are firstborn tablets. They are sealed." "How did you?" "Natharon granted me access," Yuna said, and saw the old archivist nod from his place among the council. "For 10,000 cycles, you have tried to understand these. You have studied them, measured them, analyzed them, but you cannot read them." She held the tablet up higher. "I can." "Impossible," another council member shouted. "The firstborn language is dead. No living being can interpret those symbols." "Watch," Yuna said. She placed the tablet on a pedestal in the center of the floor. Then she laid her hands on it and began to speak. The words came from somewhere deep inside her, from a place in her mind that knew patterns older than stars. The symbols on the tablet began to glow. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Yuna kept speaking, letting the ancient language flow through her. It hurt, like trying to hold the ocean in a cup. But she pushed through the pain. The words were about memory, about preservation, about the desperate hope that something would survive. Light began to pour from the tablet, filling the chamber with holographic images. The Velari Council shrank back as the firstborn appeared before them, beings of pure energy, their civilization at its height. Cities that existed in folded space, ships that traveled between dimensions, knowledge that spanned galaxies, and then the images showed the end. The firstborn scattering across the universe, fragmenting themselves, seeding their essence into the basic building blocks of consciousness itself. They knew they were dying, Yuna translated, her voice strained. They could not survive as they were. So they chose to become something else. To hide themselves in the patterns of thought, in the structures of language. They hoped that someday, the children they had seeded would remember them. She moved to another tablet, then another. With each one she touched, more images appeared. More of the story unfolded. The Velari watched in stunned silence as their entire understanding of galactic history rewrote itself before their eyes. Finally, Yuna reached the last tablet, the one with the prophecy. Her hands were shaking, and blood dripped from her nose. The connection to the firstborn was burning through her mind, threatening to tear her apart. But she had to finish. "This is the prophecy of return," she said. "The last message the firstborn left behind." Veltharon stepped forward, his staff trembling in his grip. "Stop. You'll kill yourself. No single mind can channel that much." "I have to," Yuna gasped. "You have to understand. You have to see." She placed both hands on the final tablet. The chamber exploded with light. Every crystal in the temple began to resonate, singing with harmonics that had been silent for billions of years. Yuna spoke the prophecy, each word tearing through her like fire. "The children will fragment across the void, the torch will dim, but one line, one unexpected branch, will carry the ember through the darkness. When the young speak with old voices, the cycle turns, the memory returns, the lost become found, and the inheritors will bear the weight of what came before." The images showed Earth, primitive humans learning to speak, to write, to think in symbols, and woven through every word, every sentence, every thought, the faint echo of the firstborn, changed, evolved, but still there, still alive in the deep patterns of language itself. "You are the ember," Veltharon whispered, his voice barely audible over the ringing crystals. "Impossible. You are the ember." His staff, which had been held by high priests for 10,000 cycles, began to crack. The ancient crystal couldn't handle the resonance Yuna had awakened. Light poured from the fractures. "No," Veltharon said, staring at his staff in shock. "This staff was made from firstborn crystal. It has never responded to anything. Never changed." "How?" The staff fell from his hands and shattered on the floor. The chamber went absolutely silent. Every Velari stared at the broken pieces of the most sacred artifact in their entire civilization. Yuna collapsed. The connection to the tablets broke, and she fell hard. But before she hit the ground, someone caught her. Minho. Her captain had jumped from the gallery and run to her side. "I've got you," he said. "Hana! Sue! Get down here!" The medical officer and engineer rushed down, pulling out scanners. Yuna's eyes were glowing with the same light as the tablets, and her neural readings were completely scrambled. "What did you do?" Sue whispered, working frantically to stabilize her. "Proved. We're worth remembering," Yuna managed to say before darkness took her. When she woke, she was back in the crew quarters on the Taeguk Dawn. Hana sat beside her bed, and through the window, she could see they were still docked at the temple. "How long was I out?" Yuna asked. 2 days, Hana said. "Sue says your brain is still trying to process whatever you connected with. You keep mumbling in languages we don't recognize." "The council? They've been in session since you collapsed. Veltharon hasn't left the chamber of testimony. Inho brought food and water. But the priest won't eat or sleep. He just stares at the broken pieces of his staff." Yuna sat up slowly, her head still pounding. "I broke the most sacred artifact in their civilization. You proved that humans are special," Hana corrected. "You did the impossible. The entire Velari population is talking about it. Some think you're blessed. Others think you're dangerous, but nobody thinks humanity is unremarkable anymore. What about Minho? Captain's waiting for the council's decision." "But Yuna..." Hana's voice dropped. "What you did, connecting to those tablets, Sue says, it changed your brain. You're not the same. Parts of your neural pathways have been rewritten." Yuna touched her temples. She could feel it. The firstborn language still echoed in her mind, quieter now but present. A weight she would carry forever. "I know," she said quietly. "The firstborn's memories. They're part of me now. Not all of them. Just fragments. But enough. Was it worth it?" Yuna thought about Earth. About all the humans who would explore the galaxy because of what she had done. About being remembered, Yes, she said. It was worth it. On the third day after the trial, Veltharon summoned the human crew to the observation deck. It was a smaller chamber than the others, with walls of transparent crystal that looked out into open space. Stars glittered in the darkness like scattered diamonds. Yuna walked slowly, still weak. Minho stayed close to her side, ready to catch her if she stumbled. Hana, Taemin, Kiro, Jia, and Su followed behind. Whatever the council had decided, they would face it together. Veltharon stood at the window, his back to them. Without his staff, he looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable. Other council members stood nearby. Natharon, Korvathan the Inquisitor, and several others whose names Yuna didn't know. For 10,000 cycles, Veltharon began without turning. The Velari have guarded the memory of the galaxy. We have recorded 60,000 species, preserved their achievements, ensured that nothing was truly lost to time. He turned to face them. His glow was dim, tired. We believed we understood the firstborn. We believed their language was dead. Their legacy ended. We were wrong. Korvathan stepped forward, his crystalline form rigid with anger. This human desecrated our most sacred archives. She broke the staff that has guided our people since the beginning. She should be punished, not rewarded. She revealed a truth we had missed for eons, Natharon countered. The firstborn are not gone. They live on in the patterns of thought itself. And this young species carries their echo more clearly than any other. Underslashen, impossible. Korvathan snapped. Humanity is nothing special. They got lucky. One random mutation. One chance similarity in neural structure. It means nothing. It means everything, Veltharon said quietly. Don't you see? The firstborn seeded life across the galaxy billions of years ago. Trillions of species have evolved since then. But only one out of countless millions kept the connection strong enough to hear their voice. That is not luck. That is purpose. He moved closer to Yuna. The prophecy of return speaks of inheritors. We thought it meant the Velari. We thought our long study, our dedication to preserving knowledge, made us worthy, but we were too changed, too far from the source. We evolved intelligence through crystal formation, through collective memory stored in physical form. Our consciousness developed along a completely different path than the firstborn intended. And humans? Yuna asked softly. Humans evolved language organically. Through social bonds, through the need to share thoughts and feelings. Your neural pathways developed in response to communication itself. The basic structure of how you think, how you process meaning mirrors the firstborn's design more closely than any other known species. Silence filled the observation deck. Outside, stars wheeled slowly in their ancient dance. The council has made a decision, Veltharon said. By majority vote, humanity is granted full access to Velari space and beyond. Your coordinates will be shared with all allied species. You will be recorded in our archives not as a minor species, but as inheritors of the firstborn. Relief flooded through Yuna. They had done it. Humanity's future among the stars was secure, but Veltharon wasn't finished. However, he continued. This recognition comes with a price. The firstborn's language is not just words. It carries their memories, their knowledge, their entire civilization encoded in meaning itself. Using it connects you to that weight. As you discovered, it can damage minds not prepared for it. He gestured to Yuna. You bear that burden now. Parts of the firstborn live in your thoughts. You will carry them for the rest of your life. I know, Yuna said. The question is, will humanity help bear this weight, or will they let you carry it alone? Minho stepped forward immediately. We're a crew. We face everything together. If Yuna carries this burden, then we all do. Pretty words, Korvathan said coldly. But can you prove it? The Velari offer humanity a position as keepers of the archive. You would work alongside us, preserving galactic memory. But you would also study the firstborn language. Help us understand what was lost, That means more of your people connecting to those tablets. More minds changed forever. Is there another option? Hana asked. Yes, Veltharon said. We can seal the Firstborn archive again. Humanity goes free with our blessing. But the tablets remain untouched. The knowledge stays buried. Yuna keeps what she has learned, but no other human would bear that burden. He looked at Yuna with eyes that held millions of years of wisdom. The choice is yours. Yuna thought about the weight in her mind. The fragments of firstborn memory that would never leave her. The voices of beings dead for billions of years, whispering in patterns beneath her thoughts. It hurt. It would always hurt. She thought about her professors on Earth, who had mocked her theories. About the loneliness of being the only one who saw connections others couldn't. About carrying knowledge that no one else could understand. Then she looked at her crew. At Minho, who had never doubted her. At Hana, who had stayed by her side through everything. At Taiman, young and eager to learn. At Sue, who had worked day and night to keep her alive. At Kiro and Gia and all the others who had trusted her. I don't want to carry this alone, she said quietly. But I won't ask others to suffer for my choice. What if we want to help? Taiman asked. What if learning the firstborn language? Understanding their legacy? What if that's valuable? What if it's worth the cost? It will change you, Natharon warned. Your mind will never be the same. Maybe that's okay, Hana said. Maybe changing isn't always bad. Yuna changed, and she's still our friend. Still herself. Just more. Yuna felt tears in her eyes. You would do this? Share this burden? That's what humans do, Minho said firmly. We share the weight. We build together. One person can't hold an entire civilization's worth of memory. But 1,000 people? 1,000,000? We can spread the load. Each person carrying a small piece. He turned to Veltharon. The Velari work alone. Each of you guards your own knowledge. But humans work as a community. We teach each other. Learn from each other. Build on each other's discoveries. If the firstborn's legacy is too heavy for one mind, then we'll carry it in many minds. A collective memory, Natharon said slowly. Distributed across your entire species. Like how the firstborn themselves worked. He looked at Veltharon. Perhaps that is the lesson. Perhaps that is why they chose this path for their legacy. Veltharon was silent for a long time. Finally, he bowed his head. It was the first time any human had seen a Velari show such respect. Then it is decided. Humanity will become keepers of the archive. You will work with us, learn from us, and teach us in return. The firstborn tablets will be studied, but carefully. Each human who chooses to connect with them will be supported, monitored, never left to bear the weight alone. He straightened, and his glow brightened. This is a new path for both our species. The Velari have worked in isolation for too long. Perhaps it is time we remembered how to share the burden. Corvathon made a sound of disgust and left the chamber. But the other council members stayed, their glows shifting to colors that Yuna was learning meant acceptance. There is one more thing, Veltharon said. He gestured, and Inho approached carrying something wrapped in cloth. The staff I carried was made from firstborn crystal. When it broke, I thought it a tragedy. But Inho showed me something. The young Velari unwrapped the cloth, revealing the broken pieces of the staff. But they weren't broken anymore. The fragments had fused back together, but in a new form, multiple pieces woven together instead of one solid piece. It reformed itself, Inho explained, but differently, stronger. The cracks filled with new crystal growth, creating connections that weren't there before. Veltharon took the staff carefully. Perhaps this is the truth the firstborn wanted us to understand. Strength comes not from standing alone, but from connecting with others, from accepting change and growing from it. He offered the staff to Yuna. This belongs to you now. You awakened it. You proved worthy of the firstborn's legacy. Yuna shook her head. I'm not a priest, I'm just a linguist who got lucky. You are the first to hear the firstborn's voice in billions of years. That makes you more than lucky. It makes you chosen. He pressed the staff into her hands. Carry it. Let it remind you that even broken things can become whole again. The staff felt warm in Yuna's grip. The crystal pulsed gently, responding to her touch. In her mind, she felt the firstborn memories stir. Acknowledging the connection, outside the observation window, the Taeguk dawn waited. Beyond it, the galaxy stretched out in all directions. Billions of stars, countless worlds, infinite possibilities. What do we do now? Hana asked. Now, Veltharon said, we begin. Humanity has much to learn. And the Velari have much to teach. But perhaps you have something to teach us as well. Yuna looked at her crew, at the Velari, at the stars beyond. The weight in her mind was still there. But it felt lighter somehow. Shared. I can teach you a phrase, she said to Inho. Something from my world. What phrase? Yuna smiled. In Korean, we say jong. It means connection. The feeling of being bound to someone through shared experience. It's hard to translate exactly, but it's about how we're stronger together than apart. Inho tilted his head, interested. Jong, he repeated, the word strange in his crystalline voice. I like this. Teach me more. I will, Yuna promised. We have time. As they left the observation deck, Minho walked beside her. How does it feel? He asked quietly. To prove them all wrong? To save humanity's future? Yuna thought about her professors, about everyone who had dismissed her theories. She thought about the firstborn, their desperate hope that someone would remember them. She thought about the future, about humans and Velari working together to preserve the galaxy's memory. It feels like carrying the universe, she said honestly. But we're strong enough. She looked down at the staff in her hands, at the way the broken pieces had fused into something new. Something better. We're strong enough, she repeated, together, and in her mind, in patterns older than stars, the firstborn whispered their agreement.